everybody. I am Shannon Lietz, and I've been in the industry for over 35 years. It's hard to say that because it also comes with a whole bunch of things like old age and lots of injuries. If you see me crippled up here and I start to limp, it's because I have a foot injury. All right, so you came to see my talk on AI, or shifting DevSecOps left to AI. Everybody knows I like to do fancy things, so why not? This is a little bit about me. I'll save you all the pain of yet another bio and just tell you that I do a lot of things. I'm basically an emerging practitioner and researcher. I run my own organization now, and that's lots of fun. So let's talk AI. Huge opportunity, right? How many of you are working on AI these days? Is that like everybody? Who's not working on AI? Any? I got a couple, I got a few, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I know, the applause was good, thank you. They deserve applause. I think at some point you'll get sucked into the Borg. I got sucked in pretty early. I've been doing AI since it was not sexy, about 15-ish years. A company gave me a petabyte of data a day to go deal with, and there's really no way to do that with a few people. So you basically set up AI and get to business and realize that you don't know anything. And so you have to start learning some stuff. And that's an interesting parade. AI is really here for speed and scale, context awareness. Anybody ever have to like do a threat model and it takes like weeks, right? AI can do it in like 30 seconds. Does it do it well? No, depending on what you're using. There's a few times that's done a good one where I didn't have to actually fix it too much. But yeah, it's pretty good for things. And then I would say, it's been pretty interesting because I feel like a lot of times it's giving a defender's advantage. The fact that you can spend 30 seconds on getting a okay-ish threat model gives you a whole lot of time back to think about what bad guys are actually doing. Now remember I said I've been doing this for like 15 years. That was before it was sexy, before we had LLMs, before all the good stuff. Like I got all the I think they were almost like stone tablet tools with AI. They're like, you know what, here's a tablet with a chisel, good luck. I'm like, great, yeah. We're not AI specialists. We don't really even know what data science is. We're a bunch of security nerds. Some of us program, cool. And they were like, yeah, you'll figure it out. Like a couple years later, we're like, oh, okay, we're okay at this now. And then somebody from data science would show up and we'd be like, oh, okay, so sad. So the AI opportunity is big right now. I would say, one of the things I wanted to bring you was how big. The evolution of DevSecOps started this thing with an $8 website. I am so sorry. Little did I know that an $8 website would get any attention. I kind of created a goal that said, hey, it's going to be on the showroom floor of RSA in 3 years after I started all that, and it did. And again, I'm sorry, because all of us want to do AppSec, and yeah. All right, so what's happening with it? Where are we? See that bell curve? Most of the organizations that I have talked to, that I deal with, are somewhere in this around automated into kind of continuous, maybe have a pipeline. If they have a pipeline, they've got a bunch of vendors. How many of you have a pipeline with a single vendor? And you could say you're in continuous. One vendor in continuous, and you cover everything. Yeah, I saw one hand go up, but then went down. Maybe still up, but we'll see. All right, so I will say that there's a whole lot of things happening. And then we saw AI bounce out with LLMs, and people started exploring a little bit, and then they started talking about agents. How many of you were like, yeah, I kind of know what an LLM is? How many of you spend a little bit of time on ChatGPT and think you're starting to do prompt engineering? Yeah, okay. Everybody's doing some prompt engineering. Some of us not as good as others. All right, so what's the leap going to take for all of us to be doing agents? I was around for all these waves where we didn't even have firewalls when I started in security. Yeah, that's a long time ago. And so I went through that wave, and that was network security, and then they were like, okay, now you design, defense in depth and IDSs and all these different things. And I was always a developer. I started in development. I was one of those kids that pulled out a book that said C++ in 24 hours and was like, okay, let's do this thing. And of course, yeah, that got me lots of jobs and stuff, which was cool. But so what's the leap going to really require? That means everybody here is going from that hill over there on the automated kind of continuous side and moving over to the agentic side. And all of your companies are like, yeah, that's a good idea. We have all the governance required. We're going to do this. We're going to make everything agentic. How many of you are exploring agentic? Got a few. How many of you are running it in production? One, two. I think I talked to three. I think I talked to the people who are running in production a while ago. It's like, you know what you should do? You should run some agentic in production. All right, so, well, it does take a little bit of effort to try and get everybody there, so you could organically grow skills. We're all kind of doing that. I saw a whole bunch of hands go up and say, hey, I'm working with AI every day. I think some of us are just scared that if we don't, we're just gonna get run over. I've always been there. Like, I think for me, what I realized a long time ago was, I'm gonna kind of need a little bit of a leg up, so I've got to get ahead of everybody else and like know stuff. And that's kind of what kept me into the business for as long as I've been here, you know, despite what many would like. So the other thing you do is change the buyer's roadmap. Anybody think about what that would require? How many of your CISOs are like, you know what, scrap this 3-year roadmap, I'm going to agentic for everything? No, not really. They're not gonna give up all their tools yet. They're probably not gonna be able to give up their tools. In fact, they're probably gonna have to buy even more tools. They're gonna have their tools, they're gonna have an MCP server of their tools, they're gonna have a whole bunch of other tools that they don't even know they need yet. So the buyer's roadmap, that CISO, poor CISO is gonna have to have a story about how all this stuff works. You're gonna have to figure it out so that the CISO can have a story, correct? That's kind of how it works. The other thing that's gonna happen, and we're starting to see it, is you're gonna change the seller's roadmap. All those vendors out there. How many vendors at RSA didn't have AI on their roadmap? Anybody? Did you find one? I think there was a couple. We gave out stickers. Yeah, there was a couple of ones that were like no AI on a sticker that somebody was handing out at RSA. I think I saw maybe 3. So everybody's doing AI, which means, see that little tiny red arrow on the continuous stack there? What do you think that means? That's gonna mean that basically we're spending a lot less money as investors on the continuous stack, and we're moving all of our money to the agentic stack because that's where all the trillions of dollars are gonna be made, right? That's how you kind of do bets. So which one's right? Anybody? How are we gonna get there? How are we gonna get there fast? How did we get to DevSecOps so fast? Did we do one of those things? Did we organically grow? I know for the first 2 to 3 years, it felt like death because it felt like that organic growth was all I had. When I was paving a path, I was like, there are no tools, there are no vendors, there's no one investing in DevSecOps. There wasn't a single investor when we got started. Well, I can't say that. There was AWS. They listened to us. They did a bunch of things like, oh, I know, that we didn't actually have KMS and we didn't have CloudTrail and we didn't have a bunch of those things when we got started with them. And we told them how we were gonna work and they were like, okay, what else do you need? And billions of dollars later, I feel like we went through that journey pretty well. And I'm really excited about all the things that are out there. But what's gonna happen is all of these. The reality is we're gonna organically grow our skills. Your CISO's gonna change their roadmap because they're getting threatened every day. And your sellers are realizing that if they don't say AI on their roadmap, that they're not gonna get another dollar, and their seed funding is gonna dry up, and all of the things that actually create these environments is gonna be hard to deal with. So what's that really gonna turn out to? Well, right now, for all of us, it kind of seems like a hot mess. Which vendors do you buy into? They're all moving at the speed of light. Your CISO's not there yet, so you don't have buyer dollars to go buy into the seller stuff that basically proclaims victory on AI. Anybody know what victory on AI looks like? Especially in AppSec? No, right? Okay, well, I spent a little bit of time over the last couple of years trying to figure out what victory in AI was, because I was like, well, what's gonna happen to DevSecOps? Because if I don't have the answer, then probably nobody will. And I realized that AI is gonna get a lot of money, like X trillions of dollars. What did they say? They said somewhere in the 2030 range, it was gonna be a $500 billion market or something like that, crazy. That's a lot of money within 9-ish years. That's a lot more money than DevSecOps got. It's less money than cloud kind of got, right? We have cloud and we got into the big money. We've got vendors that are in the trillions of dollars now. The other thing it's gonna bring is lots of costly mistakes. Anybody here making any mistakes yet? Yeah, thank you. I make at least a few mistakes a day, if not hundreds. I will say that I burn through AI credits like it's going out of style. I have, let me see, I'll tell you I'm an AI addict. I have Copilot, I have Claude, I have Gemini, I have, oh God, I'll just start naming them. It's gonna be terrible. I have a lot of them, all of them almost. I think most of them are like, you know what? I can do something else for you that you can't do with this other one. Oh, that sounds really good. We should try that out and see if they're lying. So I can tell you how many are lying, by the way, most of them. And when I say lying, let's be fair. They're not genericists, right? They're not here for general practice. They can't do everything, although they'll tell you they can do everything. Very few of them can actually do code. I would say I'm still pretty in love with Claude when it comes to coding. So if you're trying to figure out how to deal with code, that's my favorite. I do play with GitHub on occasion. It pisses me off, and then I tell it to go to bed because I can't stand it anymore. But then I get excited about the fact that it changes because, you know, they have to change it all the time. That's fantastic. So the real question here is, are you going to take the blue pill or the red pill? The part of AI that you really need to be thinking about is, what does strategy come to? Are we going to end up chasing an adversary or chasing compliance? How many of you are doing compliant, what is it, like automated compliance now? Yeah, you got like APIs for automated compliance. It's part of your DevSecOps pipeline. Anybody that sounds familiar? Got a few? GRC engineering. Okay, we have some new terms for it. We called it compliance engineering about like 12, 15 years ago. And then we realized like how much we really didn't need to spend on it, a whole bunch of that. And then we realized that if we wanted to get really good at AI, if we gave it even a little bit of compute, we needed to figure out how to get to adversary resilience. So somewhere in my term at Intuit, I basically stood up an adversary management team, and everybody said, "What is adversary management?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to have to figure that out. I don't actually know." And so ran a team that was doing red team, did a whole bunch of different things. So the question is, when you're thinking about agentic, do you think you can really have two masters, two goals? Are these one agent or two? Anybody? What was that? Two. Has to be two. At least two. At least two. There we go. That's the right answer. It's many more than just two. When you really boil down the capabilities that an agent can deal with, we actually need to boil it all the way down to simplified capabilities. There will be a master orchestrator agent who kind of takes all the glory for all the things that it does but doesn't do because it parses out work and sends it to something else. How many of your developers are using agents in production? I know, I put that last one in. So I saw a lot of hands go up and then a lot of hands go down. When I say in production, I mean in their CI/CD pipeline that publishes to production. A few more hands go back up. Okay, you guys are the spirited crowd. You're living life on the edge a little bit. How are you governing? Anybody got some governing rules? Checklists? Got a few? Yeah? All right, cool. What I found out along the way was that we have to do those things. So who do you think wins when it comes to your CISO's budget? It's going to be the blue side, right? That revenue thing's very attractive. That expenses thing, not so attractive. You know what's really interesting too? The expenses thing becomes very attractive when your company is losing money hand over fist. They can't do business. Adversaries are basically taking them down. There's lots of money to be lost. We're seeing $1 billion of incidents. I actually saw a few news articles recently. One of them was actually a college who said they couldn't process applications anymore because automated agents were actually filling their queue. Ooh, that sucks. So we're going to find out that actually it's going to be kind of humans against agents, not agents against agents. But if you are going to try and build some agents, you do need to start thinking about what their goals are. So I'm going to start you off with, what did I learn along the way as I was kind of carving a path? So start with goals, start with metrics. How many of you have application security metrics? Okay, we got a few. Do you like them? Anybody like them? Nobody likes them. I got one that likes them. Okay, you got a lot. Okay, all right, excellent. Are they, when I say metrics, are they goal-oriented? Like when they go down, somebody freaks out. When they go up, people celebrate. Okay, we've got a winner. All right, we got a couple of people in here that are starting to figure it out. That's good. That's really good because you're the ones on the path for real agentic capabilities in production. Why do I say that? Because agents are funny. They like math. It's really interesting. I realized along the way that if I gave it words, like most of my agent flows sucked. But when I started translating everything into metrics, all of a sudden, ML, you name it, every type of AI I've dealt with, NLP, all of a sudden it really liked it. So I started this thing called Securability a while back. It was because developers basically beat me up and said, we want a metric in security that goes up when we do good and down when we do bad. Because we want it to make so we actually know when we need to care and not care. So can you build that metric? And I was like, sure. Sounds interesting. And then I got somebody who told me about security budgets, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Leading and lagging indicators. Anybody got some leading indicators they're proud of for AppSec? I know I'm talking about math and metrics this early in the morning, no coffee. I haven't had coffee yet either, I'm so sorry. I actually usually drink coffee for your protection, like I usually say. Most people say that about me too. You'll see too that maybe sometimes I actually go to developers and I'm like, all right, I've got 10 people who can do incident response. You've got 1,000 applications. See where this is going already, right? Each person's got about 2,000 hours a year that they can do something. I've got some automated efficiencies. Your budget is 2 hours a year for an incident in your application. And they're like, what? I'm like, oh, that's a lot. 2 hours a year is a lot. And they're like, okay. And then they start trying to figure out how they're going to make their vulnerabilities fit down and like which ones are critical and which ones are going to cause an outage and which ones are going to cause adversaries. And so incidence hours is kind of interesting to track. Mean time to contain. Anybody seeing these ones? How many of you have application security response? What is it, detection and response? Anybody buying into that yet? Oh, I got a couple. I do, all right. ADR, you're on the Gartner map. Anybody like it? I don't have any hands now. I had a few and then no hands. ADR is interesting. It could be useful. I think if those vendors could figure out how to make it work, it would be really powerful. I think it's going to be where some of the triage in AI will end up. I think it's where some of the human in the loop will end up. So you're ahead. Like if you're using an ADR right now, eventually that's kind of where you're going to end up is dealing with, you know, hey, this is an application incident. We need to be able to tune something. Let's see if the agent did its work. We'll work our way through that flow. All right. The other thing you're going to have to do is develop some context. I like to build risk matrices and risk registers because I'm just really sadomasochistic, I think. I like to help CISOs to figure out how to tell a board what they're doing. This is a really good context engine. A to Y, you can basically roll up the things that are relatively green. Doesn't mean that they're green, but they're kind of like red-green a little bit. You know, I know. It's kind of fun to say those things. Now, the other thing to think about is understanding how metrics guide AI. I'm going to give you some really cool ones. I know that at some point you guys are going to want these slides. So if you think about it, we have compliance on one side, we have security on the other side, we have a level of compliance that we have to maintain. So most of you that build software and you sell it, you probably have to deal with this thing called third-party risk management. It's generally always a questionnaire. And so you have to fill out these things that are for compliance purpose. Most of the time, they have nothing to do with your application. They have everything to do with how your business operates. They're asking questions like asset management coverage, or asking questions like how many policies do you have? Do you have policy coverage? They're not really asking AppSec questions. Why do you think they're not asking any AppSec questions? Is it because people don't care? Huh? Because they don't understand it. That's right. Because it's code, it's hard. Complicated, and if we ask questions about it, we might not know what to do with the answer. You might need to have a developer sitting next to a lawyer to be able to figure out a contract if we actually put it all the way in there. So let's just use this like NIST thing or whatever other thing that's out there. Anybody using the SSDF right now? Yeah, okay. Are you using the one from NIST or the one from, what is it, BSA? NIST, okay, so you got the 800-218. How's that going? Anybody got success? Braggable success? Yeah, I got a few questionable hands down here. That's good. By the way, I like to tell you what's happening in the market, so that's why I'm asking you all the questions, so that everybody in the room can see how they're doing, because it really does help. That's what I like about community, is we can all share and help each other. All right, so the other side of this equation, the one that I started working on a while back, and I'm talking about a while back, resilience. So that word resilience, by the way, is taken up by developers, so I had to start with something else. I called it securability. I called it securability because that was a word that the developers wouldn't take over. They don't like anything that starts with secure. I know. I have jokes for days about some of these things. They wanted me to build a metric, then they got the metric, then they were like, okay, but that's your metric, not our metric. And I'm like, it is your metric because it goes up when you're doing good and down when it goes bad, right? And I'm gonna start you at 100%, and I'm gonna go take my red team and show you why you're not. How many of you run app red teams now? A few, okay. By the way, I've asked that question, I think, for several times now, and I think I've had about the same amount of hands. Come on, people, we need to start arguing with our, directors and our managers and our CISOs about why that purple box down at the bottom, the one that says to advocate, it's your defender's advantage, is really critical. You can't just get it because of compliance. You're gonna have to invest in adversary resilience. And then the other thing you should be thinking about is strategic advantage. So strategic advantage is gonna be the ones where, because compliance said we have to do it, we're gonna do it, and we get to be resilient. It's kind of a side effect, right? So now I have the ability to go and say, the authority to operate is gonna grant me the ability to be resilient with adversaries. All right, so those green dots are really highly powerful. So what do you do with all these things? Why do I have this for you? Because agents care. Because when it comes down to it, when you're gonna put an autonomous agent to work, you need to be able to help it to understand what its context is, how it's gonna set up thresholds, what its measurements are gonna be, right? It's gonna need grids, it's gonna need all these tools. You may not think so now. I mean, everybody thinks that's just about prompt engineering, but guess what? When you give a prompt, context or tools or things like that, like they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. When you're using it with an agent, it's true. It's worth 1,000 words. When you're using it with an LLM, it's worth probably 10,000 words, because I like to take shortcuts. I like to build pictures first so I can just get out of the prompting. And so I've used a lot of these tools. This one actually works pretty powerfully. If you tell an agent basically to go hone in on goals and targets within the green and the purple areas, you will build more resilience. You will be basically getting to the point where your adversary opportunities are declining. This means that your vulnerabilities will go down over time because you've got adversaries basically as a backstop. How many of you are the adversary in your organization? Yeah, okay, we're still being villainized. But by the way, here's my answer. Look, I'm here to help you, because I'm talking to a developer. I'm here to help you because I'm basically helping you with either the adversary or the auditor. It's not me. I'm just helping you to decipher what the auditor is saying because I kind of know enough about your code. And the adversary is not somebody you're gonna go talk to unless I guess you wanna go set up a quick meeting with them or something. I have actually seen that, by the way. I saw a developer once actually invite an adversary to sit in a conversation, and that developer worked through what they called an adversary journey line, and they built an A/B process. An A/B process basically allows them to shunt traffic from one thing to another. I was like, wouldn't that be cool if we could get AI to be able to do these types of things? Well, it turns out that investigating is quite interesting. When you get this thing really close, it actually is much louder. So I'm gonna try and keep it down here. All right, so the other thing you need to figure out is how to create human-centric design. So you're a bunch of AppSec folks, you're gonna have to build agentic capabilities at some point. It's probably 10 years away, so some of us may actually retire out of the community before then. Probably won't be me because I just am fascinated by these things, but human-centric design, anybody know what this means? They call it human in the loop, right? Human in the loop? That still means that jobs aren't gone. Your job's not going away, so don't let anybody fool you. Don't get worried about it. I will say, though, that if you decide to take a hiatus for a while and learn some AI stuff, you probably can double your salary. So I've seen that a few times. I've talked to folks that are doing that. They're like, yeah, I took 6 months off. I got some AI skills, and now I'm going back and making twice what I made before. I was like, huh, that's a really interesting thought. Okay. And I started seeing the next person following suit, and I'm like, wow, all right, this is really interesting. Why? Why are they doing that? Well, it turns out that humans are going to be really important. By the way, this is a great place where we're all collaborating right now. What can't do what we're doing right now? An agent. We could probably invite them. Somebody might be inviting them right now. I got a few laptops open. Maybe I'm being recorded by an agent. That's okay, because they like me. They're very friendly for whatever reason. I like to do all those transcript things. They're fantastic, right? Are transcripts really good? Yeah? All right. So you've got good transcripts. So if we give the AI a transcript of what's happening in here, how many things is it missing out on? It's missing out on the side conversations. It's missing out on the questions and context that are being shared at every table. It's missing out on all the meetings. Oh, yeah. It's missing out on all of the facial expressions, the glances. We're going to say, hey, there's hands are going up. And they're like, oh, there was 3 hands. Okay, great. There's a trend. And so what's going to happen with those transcripts is they're going to create knowledge, but it's going to start to create bias in knowledge. So what we're all kind of fighting with is how do we actually make sure that these capabilities are governed, that they stay intact? And why, I'm probably getting a lot of looks for why is this relevant to my DevSecOps thing, right? Other thing I found out, because I got beat up by developers, was they had this capability map. If you're not familiar with it, go look at LeanIX. They actually started a company on what they call capability modeling. LeanIX is a really interesting thing. This is what I call the Cyber City map. It is out there on the internet. We're in the middle of revising it. It's going to be more powerful. I'm going to do a whole bunch of cohort things with it because I really believe in capability modeling. Why do I do that? Well, because you're probably going to build agents in every single one of these boxes. Remember, somebody said 2 or more? This is what my agents are doing. So I run on a few different CI/CD platforms, and I'm like, I'm going to have to start doing some extra work. I get interns to come in. They build an agent. We have an agent called Gina, because I run this company called Hacker Girl. All of the agents are female names, because I'm just that. And because I can do that for whatever reason. And so Gina is my AI Audit and Review Friday. When you hire interns, they give you acronyms like ARF, because they don't like Friday meetings. They call it ARF. So they're like, yeah, we're going to go to ARF. And I'm like, great, that sounds really attractive. It doesn't sound like I heart ARF. It sounds like I really don't want to be at ARF. And I like that kind of because I want my interns to devise it so that ARF is actually pretty quick and high-paced and fast. One of the meetings that we had along the way when we were really kind of struggling and digging in, it was like an 8-hour Friday meeting. 8 hours talking about agents. Yeah, with interns. Anybody? Sound exciting? It was. And why was it so important to have that conversation? It was because we had agents that were being built without context, without capability modeling, without constraint. And we weren't getting the results we wanted, and we were constantly having to review and tune and recycle. And so ARF has become one of the most powerful meetings. The other thing that I learned along the way was my interns need to talk to each other. Turns out that one of the other powerful things that you're going to need to be able to do is actually collaborate. I hated that message when DevSecOps started that I was going to have to collaborate, DevOps or collaborators. I'm like, oh God, I got to go talk to people, got to learn from people. This is great. I actually really like learning from people. If you don't know me very well, I like to ask everybody 1,000 questions. I'm that person in the room like, well, why? I was that kid, well, why? So the knowledge model here was built from understanding what they call pragmatic architecture. You could feed your AI pragmatic architecture. It's a website out there that's interesting if you want to. LeanIX has the ability, if you've got it in your company. How many people have LeanIX in their company or think they might? Do you have enterprise architects? Are you an SAP shop? Okay. No, I got a lot of no's. All right. Well, that means that one of your core pillars of doing agentic pretty well is going to be missing. So how do you get it into your organization? Well, it can come in through the security organization. I like to build stuff like this. And that's one of the reasons why I put the model together is so that y'all could actually leverage it. So feel free to go use that and figure out what to do with it. I tend to believe that the value stream for cybersecurity wraps around 5 major pieces of the process. When you tell a AI agent that they really are kind of like within a closed loop, the math gets happier. Closed loop math is way easier than unbounded infinite math. Interestingly enough, agents do better with bounded math. I've been saying that for years. I got better at saying it. I've figured out now what it really meant. I think I kind of get onto these things. I start doing research and I'm like, but I don't actually know where the end of this trail goes. But after you build agentic and you start putting it into production, you find out that closed loop math is really useful. So you're going to need this too. So what does it mean? Anybody doing application adversary research right now? No? How many of you have money movers if you're doing money applications? How many of you have script kiddies that you worry about? When you say adversary to the application teams, what do you mean by that word? Because agents need more context. They're going to need a whole lot to understand what they're building for. So you're going to run through this loop, right? Generally, you're going to run through this loop with a context of some sort of adversary. And so simplifying the security value stream is really important because it's going to help you with, again, kind of bounding those agents. When you hire interns and you show them that loop, they don't get as petrified as if you show them the one that shows them all the certifications in cybersecurity. You know the one, right? The eye chart. If I show them that, and by the way, I did a test. I was like, I showed one intern that map, and I showed the other intern this little process thing. And interestingly enough, the first person actually was like, quit the second day, I think, or something like that. And then I showed them this map, and they were like, oh, well, if you'd shown me that, I was like, yeah, well, that was part of the test. If I show you the easy route, you'll realize you can probably do it. If I show you the hard one that requires you to spend probably 20 or 30 years learning something, it may not happen, right? So what are adversary profiles? We all talk about them. We talk about nation states. How many of you think you have nation states hitting your application? Everybody's hand should go up because you may not be the biggest prize, but you're maybe a stepping stone towards a prize, right? Fourth party, third party, fourth party, fifth party, eighth party. I've seen universities being used to get to some level of a real nation state target before. Why? Because they don't have enough budget to secure themselves properly, and because they also service a whole lot of like students who want everything open to the whole world. Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? So, by the way, you'll see that little word underlined up there, the trigger, right? When you're building an agent, you actually need something to kind of kick a flow. You need triggers. At the end of a flow, you need another way of setting a trigger to send it off to something. Like, it has to have a beginning and an end to do work. And so, what kicks it off? Well, in this case, adversary profiles are really triggers for threat modeling and for building code. If you're a vibe coder, anybody vibe coding right now? Like, that's how you've gotten into coding? Okay, cool. How many of you don't love vibe coding? Have you read any vibe code? Yeah, like so many hands. Anybody read any code that was like born from vibe coding and been like, let me run away because there's so many vulnerabilities in this thing, it's awful? Yeah, it's going to be awful for a while because for whatever reason, they aren't hiring any security professionals to help them build better agentic capabilities. But eventually it'll get better, I think. Ultimately, those triggers should set up your threat models. They should actually, once the code's being born, somebody's starting to write something, it's going to have a set of profiles. You can actually get the agent itself to write a set of adversary profiles. You can get it to write the threat models without you actually having to be working on it. And it becomes really much easier when you build a scorecard. So your organization needs to have some core pillars. You should have a capability map. You should have a risk matrix. You should have an adversary scorecard. When you say the word adversary, you got to translate that into the different types of adversaries. I've worked at several companies now where I've done the adversary scorecard. They've had at least 30 plus profiles. Profiles are not APTs, they're categories. You're basically taking the threats that are out there, you're shoving them into an adversary profile. Why do you do that? Because then you can build a threat model that's closely aligned to the adversary profile, and then you're going to have defenses that work on that. Because, by the way, one size fits all doesn't happen with every single adversary. I tend to try and line up tools in that column in between the adversary skill and the IT corp there. I tend to put the tools that somebody's got in their environment, and oftentimes I find out where the gaps are just by lining up their tools. I'm like, well, that's great. You don't have anything for fake support right now. And they're like, well, but why would my application security team need to have something for fake support? And I'm like, because it's an adversary issue for your application, because that's actually the customer support angle of that application. And so scorecard's really powerful. Can anybody guess what the numbers mean? What do I base that off of? The red, yellow, greens. Anybody? Go ahead, you got a question. It's company specific. You're going to have company specific adversaries that target your organization and then not. Generally, I would say yes, there are. We tended to use the MITRE ATT&CK framework to get to some understanding of what an APT was. We named it. I would say I do have a little bit of work. Maybe I could build one of the profiling capabilities eventually and throw all of the ones that I know about and have people do something with it. I wish MITRE would do that, but they haven't. They kind of have all the APTs mapped into MITRE ATT&CK, but they don't really have application security adversaries, and they haven't figured out the category thing. We're still kind of stuck on malware, which is one line item. We spend all of our money on malware still. If you think about it, this is actually an investment portfolio too, right? How many of you are spending any money on some of these? You're probably not spending money on some of these, right? Kind of interesting. All right. I think I answered your question. Go ahead. It's that securability score. The one I got beaten up for, it was a weekend. It was actually 2 weekends. It was a bunch of developers and a couple of high-level people in the organization that were it has to go up when it's good and it has to go down when it's bad. That's this. And if you notice that BU at the bottom that's not very script kiddie resilient, you walk into a conversation where you have this scorecard and they're at the bottom, they have a lot of explaining to do, right? You just change the game when it comes to your application security. You don't have to actually go argue with people. I found out that just putting information into these tools and actually having a way to create the value stream and actually operating a little bit more like an agent. Yeah, everybody always tells me that I'm like Vicky the robot. That's kind of a really old joke. Vicky the Robot was an old TV show. She used to walk around. It was a girl that they made look like a robot and sound like a robot, and then she'd go to sleep in the closet. Yeah, I tend to operate sometimes like that because that's how I think is well, if I could just make things systematically work out and there was an objective answer to something, then eventually I'll be able to automate it without scrutiny. Well, it turns out that, and I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff, and you'll probably want these slides. Send me a LinkedIn. I'll send you the slides. Example prompt. If you plug this into AI, you'll get an adversary profile matrix. So this is off of Claude. What are the numbers there? I gave it some fake data because that's how I actually start feeding stuff. If you can build it this way, by the way, you can create an API off of it, which means that you can start giving it securability scores, which means you can build a dashboard in Looker, Power BI, Tableau. What was it? Click? What? Domo. Okay, yeah, Domo. Yes, you can build it in any of these tools that like to give you pretty pictures because you're going to need them for all the PowerPoints that you're going to be doing because that's what your job's going to be in the future. Implement E2E threat modeling. Okay, so guess what I did? I said, all right, threat modeling. I want you to go build a threat model that's based on MITRE ATT&CK, MITRE Atlas, and CWEs. Why not CVEs or any of those things? CWEs because they're categories again. I like to stay at the bounded high-level context on purpose with agents. And I got a bunch of CWE distributions. This is actually real data off of doing an actual application and working with AI to do it. So having it spit some stuff out. And this is the, I did try to make these fit the slides, so I do have some better prompts. If you want those, we can chat. Example prompt, and you'll see here that you can put a threat model into your repo. And why do you want to do that? Because that's actually where you're going to start to store some of the information. So again, the agent can find it, and it can actually leverage it, and it can do all the cool things. And does that produce anything? Yes, it will produce you a threat model. This is like the summary matrix. There's a bunch of Lots of details after this, and that information is going to be very helpful because what you're going to do with that information is you're going to chain it, and you're going to start to get test cases. Anybody want to build test cases for their apps? Anybody want their developers to build test cases for the security stuff in their apps? You could do it, they can do it, anybody can do it because AI can do it. You're going to track your adversary profile versus test coverage. You'll notice that the adversary profile is slightly bigger than the test coverage. When you're really starting out, the green part's going to be much smaller. Over time, it gets better. You'll start to get to the point where you got a good percentage. I kind of got to the point where I was like close to 90% and said, all right, I'm good enough. Example prompt for that as well. So if you want to build a threat model using this capability, you basically feed it a bunch of context with MITRE ATT&CK. You tell it what you want in terms of your test structure, and you're going to get tests. And why do those matter? Well, they can then be fed into your engine. What's cool about that is that, anybody heard of purple teams? I just took it so that the developer team can do the purple team kickoff, and if you've got really good purple teamers, they can start building better tests, and that can be honed and basically, again, you can go after that adversary scorecard because these might work for some things. They're gonna work for the lucky adversaries. They're not gonna work for your good adversaries. Your good adversaries are gonna need some of you to write some of those things that are going to be powerful, right? And let's see here. AI-assisted threat alerting took a while, took about 6 months, got really excited about it, build a test harness, right? Anybody want to build alerts, have it build alerts? Anybody ever wish that the application that was being written by a developer had alerts in it that you could send to the SOC? So that if something bad was happening, something bad was happening, you could actually get alerted for it? Oh my gosh, guess what? There's your alerts. You can get them all into your application, and guess what? They get spawned up. You got alerts that are getting kicked out. When you push the test through, you can actually get the alerts to kick up. You can see what percentage of your alerts are actually getting tested properly. Kind of cool, right? And you can do this not just with alerts, you can do it with a whole bunch of other things too, like protection mechanisms as well. The log alert summary table, I'm giving you a whole bunch of stuff here. You can literally go use the stuff I've got in this deck to be able to work with your AI to get some of the same things. And that's gonna allow you to put into your repos all the files that you're gonna need to have as well. Don't forget your human in the loop versus manual review. So again, like, humans still need to be around. The red line is the agents. The blackish, grayish line, because I'm kind of colorblind, is actually humans. You need to be able to do as many reviews as you need, but that may mean that you kick out or do sampling or actually have some of the reviews go to people like yourselves to be able to make this all work. Anybody want to deal with third-party compliance? Packages, ooh, how are we gonna do it, right? Well, you had questionnaires, you had all this junk. You need to go use metrics. Ask a vendor, show me how your threat model drives security controls. Which adversary techniques do you prioritize? Start asking the questions and their stuff starts getting better because collectively, you are the buyers. They're the voice in the matter, right? That's gonna be interesting. What if your approved software vendor program looked like this? Every vendor had to send you these monthly metrics. They had to send you these quarterly metrics. Maybe they're sending you pen test reports. Pen test reports are going to have to get a lot better. They will, because AI is going to help them to get better. You're going to be able to slurp all of this up with some level of an agent. It's going to do some of that work for you. But your job is to be the expert that scrutinizes all of this stuff and make sure that the company is staying secure from an adversary perspective. So what's the benefits? I found out that I really like AI. I like agentic. I'm kind of a fan of agents. I have an N8N that sits out there. I've got Make and Zapier, because again, I'm kind of one of those people who's like, well, let's see what it does on this thing and that thing, and can I build my own orchestrator? And there's a bunch out there, and there's like Crew and a whole bunch of stuff that you could learn. Well, pick one that works for you. You need an orchestrator to be able to build agentic capabilities. You saw a little bit of like N8N, this scattered. Your alert accuracy will get much better. Your SOC will be able to actually take in an application security event. You will be able to do some forensics on it. You will be able to trace it back. And you're going to get 10x better coverage because adversary stuff can actually be done by an AI capability. So your job isn't going away, but it is morphing and shifting. And all the things that you couldn't scale to do before, you can now scale to do. So my advice is improve your prompting. Here's 3 to take. And I also think it's really important for you to realize that you should walk out of here with applying this concept. Think about what your journey is going to be. What are you going to do? What's your next step? Will you go take some of these prompts and go play with ChatGPT or Claude? I prompted it on all the engines, and most of them work pretty okay. Some of them have better results than others. I tend to like Claude the most because it seems to be the most down to earth when it comes to code. So your mileage may vary on others.
So when we say humans in the loop, there are different types of personas. And part of what I've seen is that we'll spend money on one type. And so it may be, if you look at the pyramid, at the bottom is the application security developers who may not use your tools very much. And some people optimize for that, which is good. But then they'll screw the people who actually do the compliance and other things. And others are, because the compliance people are paying for the tool, they'll optimize for the top of that. So I think you have to be very careful about how you devote your spend.
Yeah, that's why I built the capability map. It actually has a staffing model behind it. And if you look at how it works, it basically looks at what's manual and what's automated and what can be done with agentic. And so you're actually doing an investment portfolio off of the capability map. And that's going to help you to keep it straight, if you will, because if you don't have that map, you don't have the bounded science, which means you're going to spend here but not know what you're really doing. So it's a good observation. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.